Hello, this is another tough video, Telefriend video, this time on the power systems, the big picture, or I sometimes call it the power circle, because it's a circle of power, and it is between let's say, put king or ruler or prince, if you take Machiavelli, so you have king or kings, and then they have helpers, the politicians or the media, the journalists, also, or the clergy, so the priests, and so on, the helpers. And then you have the population. Yeah, so this is kind of the power cycle. And why is it a cycle? And that I want to show with maybe before 1990, where money was not so important, but power was, the sword, here. That was the power, to do war and so on was more important, like before 1900. And now the circle is always the same. You have, I put it, king or ruler, and you have many of those, yeah? And then obviously down here you have the peasants, yeah, or the population, and there are many more, they are all there. And now these ones, they work and they work and they work and they create value. I put it like a bag of money, but it's more value. They had to build the king's castle, so it was not only money, but they also had to build, the castle, Frondienst, it's in German, so they have to build the castle for the king, and some money. But it's mainly power, it's power, strength, and therefore war, so what happened then, that was the power game. And if you, as the peasant, as the value creators, did not participate, if you did not participate, the consequences have been your death, and you're poor. Death and poor. That was the consequence. If you participated, you had you had no death and you had to eat. Yeah, something like that. So that were the consequences. So you participate in the cycle, then you live, and you have something to eat. And if you don't participate, you're dead. And now and there is now a transition, it's a transition period, that is over the years. What happened is and we are in this transition period, there's nothing is fixed, everything flows. So we have this transition from that, and the transition rule is that power actually converts into money, yeah? And the power is government and money is companies. Yeah, and so we see that. So we have this transition, because it started with the industry creating instruments for war. So, like crop, and maybe you could say that initially the banks, when also Machiavelli lived, the banks created the money and made it very important, and they could borrow money to the king, and so we had already 1500, we had kind of bankers that had the money, and they already created influence, that they could influence the king, so that already started here. But now this transition is now a lot against governments, so you now have non-governmental organizations replacing that, and so we see that from power to money and to companies. And that means, now how was the king able to control his people, religion. Religion was, so he's the king by God, and so you have to follow. Even if you are being killed, it doesn't matter. Your God tells you to do so. And the other thing, obviously, was force. Yeah, and the force and punishment. Yeah, slaves. They were all slaves. The peasants here, they could be killed anyway. So that in that transition phase, that religion transforms to media. And to simplify, to make it a little bit shorter, that translates to media. And the force and punishment, due to a lot of liberating events like the French Revolution, where they had the freedom of speech and so on, that was terrible for the kings here. That was, the force was then translated in laws, into the executive, so the police, military was still there, and jurisdiction, and so we have these four forces, and so they were kind of translated into here, considering also these liberating things, egalitarian things. And now here I mentioned there is the bankers, and here's the war industry, so the military industry. And now this added, the companies here added something, so we have military, we have banks, so rather put them in red, so military, banks, and then we obviously have the food industry, and they propose sugar, so that people are ill, medicine, doctors, then research. So the researches and finds things that it then can tell the media, and they can then tell the peasants or the population, and the NGOs already had here, and obviously media. Yeah, so they had all these, and they are also very, very strong. Also the lawyers, so the advocates. So if you the law school and so on. So you have, instead of having here two also industries with power, you now have lots of them, and they all obviously have lobby. Yeah. So you have problems, obviously, getting rid of those. And so what we now have, so we translated this system in a much more sophisticated system, much more modern system, which is good, but good was ironically. So we still have kind of, so we have, I put it elites, people with lots of money. And they have helpers, which is the governments. So the governments are here, and the elites have the money, and this is this power shift. Here already, like the bankers have been for some time in some areas stronger than the king, but now this is a given. The elites are stronger, the companies are stronger than states, but still here you have the population. So I consider me part of that population. So 8 billion in population. You have the elites. And they kind of drive these fields. Now the thing is, the population, the media, so they influence the population. They influence those by usually money, and those by media, and then the population actually then selects to buy with their money and with their behavior. They support these, so that's the, that's the big game. And now, is there an end? So there's a transition to this. Now, what is the end? And I think we are in a better position now. Here, the king, I think he could have kind of killed half of his population, you know, by hunger and so on, and they didn't do anything. Here, actually, this is not possible because the population, now, that's very, very important, has to create a value. Now, you cannot force an engineer, you have to develop, otherwise I kill you. You can't do that. So while it is possible to tell to a peasant he has to build the castle, because like it's just labor, hands work, here it's intellectual work. So we actually have the possibility to say, no, we don't create value because you are taking too much of our share. And so that means there will be, I think, there will be you know, if you have an axis system, it is not that the elites can get 100%. They will be able to get maybe, you know, maybe they leave us 40%. That is maybe the sweet spot, but more we wouldn't accept. So that is actually quite good. So, because if they treat us too badly and don't give us any money, then obviously we don't have money to buy products from them. And then we might be unhappy, but that's question mark. Maybe then we are happy and create even more value. I don't know. Maybe like after a war, terrible crisis, and then everybody, the whole population then starts and works for 15 hours every day to build up again something, and they can get part of that value. Okay, so, but the big kind of message out of this video is that these consequences which we had here as death and being poor, these consequences are not as high as we thought. So I write maybe less severe than we all think. That means, so I write that we are relatively free. Yeah, so it's your choice. So it's your choice, because the consequences of your choice are not that you are like in the old days, dead and poor and have nothing to eat. I want to close with that. Thank you for listening. Comments are most welcome, and see you next time. Bye bye.